You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's Dallas After Show. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's Dallas After Show.
I love that intro music.
So powerful.
I know, right? What's up, cowboys and cowgirls? Bing is for doing. We're here at AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, doing another live after show for Dallas, Season 2, Episode 5, Trial and Error. I'm your host, AJ Gibson, joined by the lovely Kellie Olisky. What's up, Kellie?
Hi.
How are you?
Great episode. I'm
Such a good episode.
I'm so excited to talk about this.
Clearly. Look at that energy level, everyone. She's so excited.
I'm processing it all in my head right now. I have my notes. There's always so much I want to make sure that we go through and we don't miss anything.
It's a lot.
This show, it stresses me out sometimes.
It's so complicated. Like every one of these storylines, keep in mind, this we say episode 5 of season 2. It's really episode of season 20.
Yeah, I know.
How many original seasons? 14 or 15? So we're essentially on about season 16 right now, and they've actually been able to really tie in the old stories with the new stories and new characters. It's just so wild to think that this show is doing so well and is so relevant, so current.
Oh,
having
absolutely.
first aired in 1979.
I know.
It's
and
exciting.
I know that, sometimes we may reference something because it's like the last episode is all 4 episodes. There's so many things that happen and kind of cross between and all of that. So.
And also, let's keep in mind, we both watched this episode at like 6 a.m. this morning. We've got a lot going on.
True.
So
this is true.
I was taking notes on my couch, like drinking coffee, trying to stay awake and watch Dallas. But it was worth it, you guys. This season, I'm so excited to be covering this show.
Yeah, it's great.
So, Anne, she's all over this episode, and she should be. The episode starts off with her confronting Harris Ryland in the hospital. She's basically she lays into him. How could you do this? How could you go after Bobby? How could you, say that he did this and whatever? And Emma overhears it.
Right.
Emma, her daughter, who was taken away from her 20 years ago by Ryland, which is really was what really ignited this whole fire.
Yeah,
this whole
it's the heart of all of this drama that's been going on between the two of them. And when she goes to trial, we find out a little bit more about that story and what happened, which I liked to get more of a backstory on Anne.
Right. Well, Anne's just frustrated. She's thinking, Bobby's going to go down for this. He shouldn't. This man loves me. He's willing to do this for me. I can't let him do this for me, right? And as she leaves the hospital, she looks down on the boots she's wearing, and she sees blood on one of the toes. She's thinking, this is so odd to me, but she's thinking, okay, I can prove that I did it.
Yep.
Which is so crazy that, she's so upset that she can't prove that she actually shot Ryland. Because Ryland, when he came out of his coma, for those of you obviously watched this last week, but he came out of the coma and said that Bobby did it. Because he just hates Anne so much, and he knows that he's already taken her daughter from her. Now he wants to take her husband from her and just destroy this woman for whatever reason.
Well, I think it's his mother, which comes more to light throughout the trial. I think she's the puppet master behind this, behind the two of them, behind Emma and Ryland. And I think he's just been brainwashed for so long because I don't believe that he was necessarily this evil of a person all throughout their entire relationship.
Yeah, and they kind of allude to that a little bit later. Judith, his mother, is absolutely nuts.
She is one fantastic character, I'll tell you that. She is scary and creepy and all wrapped in one.
How fun to have the opportunity to play a character like that at that point in your career.
I know.
She's been around forever. We were watching her on
Who's the Boss?
Who's the Boss years ago. I grew up with her on Who's the Boss.
Yeah.
And she was so like carefree and loving and just a mother. And she's a mother on this show, but in a completely different way.
Right, and she had a stint on Ugly Betty,
Yeah.
where she was like the alcoholic mother of Daniel.
Yeah.
But she's such a great actress, and she plays this part so well because you're not used to seeing her that evil.
Right.
And she is really evil on the show.
It's interesting to me also the character of Emma and how she's slowly starting to evolve. The very first time we saw Emma out at the ranch when Anne met her and she was writing, she was very cold, and she wanted nothing to do with Anne. But we didn't really understand why. But as the episodes have progressed, the seasons progressed, we're starting to find out that Emma's really been brainwashed by Judith and by Ryland, by Harris, and she questions her dad.
I think she's scared of them a little bit.
Completely. You see that later in the trial. She's terrified. But at the beginning, she questions her dad, and you can tell she's a little bit suspicious. I wrote down, he's slime. To be able to just lie to your daughter like that, it's so second nature to him, but he's been doing it her entire life since she was 18 months old.
What about Judith's response? This isn't something for you to question. I mean, how... And she just shut up right away and was like, I'm sorry, I just didn't understand.
Well, let's look at that a little bit, because this relationship between Judith Ryland and Emma is really interesting. And I don't think it's really all that far-fetched, really. I don't really come from money, but it seems that if you're raised in the lifestyle she's raised in, you don't want to lose that.
Exactly.
If all you've ever known is wealth and having everything at your fingertips at the drop of a dime, and this man and this woman, essentially Judith is her mom. For all intents and purposes, Ryland never moved on. There's never another woman as far as we know. It's always been Judith, just how she always wanted it.
Super creepy.
Exactly. And so for Emma, though, Judith is really her mom. So when she looks at Anne, I can't even imagine what she feels. We talked about this a little bit last week. I had a sister I met in high school. She's my sister by blood, but I don't really know her. I have no connection to her. You know, and I wondered if that was a bad thing for a while, and if I should feel guilty about that, but I never really have. So I can really relate to Emma here. Like, maybe she just doesn't feel a lot of guilt, but as the episode progresses, we see that she actually does. And there's this little slight glimmers of hope, I think, for she and Anne's relationship, if Anne can beat this charge.
Right. And for a minute there, I thought that she was, because she definitely looks more confused, and she's not as sure as she was before that Anne is this evil person. And listening to everything come to fruition in the trial and both sides of the story, you know, and especially with Judith's outburst and how ridiculous that she was trying to really make Anne look like such a horrible person.
Right. So we actually have a caller on the line. We're going to go to the line and see who we have. This is AJ. Who do we have on the line?
Courtney.
Courtney, did you call me earlier?
Yes.
You called me during my last show. I'm so glad you called back. How are you?
Fine.
Where are you calling from, Courtney?
DC.
DC. What's up, DC? So, you're a big fan of Dallas, yes?
Yes.
What do you have for us? Do you have questions? Do you want to share something with us?
I just want to talk about John Ross and Rebecca.
Okay.
Pamela.
Yes.
I love them.
Do you like them together?
Yes.
Really? Why so?
Because if you look at the interviews that Josh Henderson gave, he was like, they're just like a Romeo and Juliet. And I feel that they are, because what's different between their relationship and Bobby and the original Pamela was that both of their fathers didn't like, you know, it was different when their brothers didn't like it, but this is their fathers.
That's interesting. It is very interesting, actually, because the way John Ross's relationship with his dad is similar in some ways to what Bobby's was with his dad. Because in the original Dallas, what's his name, Jock, Jock really, he loved both of his sons, but he had a bit of a connection with JR that he didn't really ever have with Bobby. And I think John Ross was raised that same way. He didn't really have the connection with the JR growing up. He always felt like he was never enough for him. So now it might be manifesting that he's going for another Barnes in the same way that Bobby did all those years ago. On the flip side of it, though, they're showing the dark to the shade. Does that make sense? They're showing the darker side of what a Romeo and Juliet story could be.
Right.
Yeah, And plus, I feel that, like, they both want their father's love and will do anything to get it. But John Ross is the type that says, F you, Dad, at some point, and Rebecca will just do anything Cliff says.
Right. It'll be interesting.
And we saw it in this episode because he was like, F my father, let's go out to eat. She was like, no, my father said no. I can't deal with you.
As much as she maybe does actually want to go out to dinner with him, because I think she does.
I think I think she does have some emotion there for sure that she's trying to fight back. And plus they grew up very similar, and I think that's one of the things that's going to draw them to each other because they're both just looking for love. And neither one of them feel it.
I wanted to say something real quick about the whole everybody hating on Pamela because I can't stand Christopher. I can't.
Well, I know. I was talking with some people on YouTube that he's really bratty, which we talked about last week. That he's just being a really big brat, and it's just. I mean, he came around a little bit this episode, but he's getting on my nerves too.
Especially that scene where she said, read between the lines.
Yeah, I like that.
She was doling out hits when we were together. When I was pregnant, I was like, you tell him. And I was like, I was on YouTube, and I was like, everybody don't like Pamela because she did what she did to Tommy. I said she did the same thing Ann did. She was just protecting her child.
Oh, I like that actually because it's interesting this season that Christopher and Elena, we were kind of pulling for them to get together last year. At least I was. And now that they're actually together, I don't enjoy them near as much. I think both their characters are a little bit bland right now. They're kind of boring. And I really, as I get to know Pamela, Rebecca, whoever she is now, as I get to know her character a little bit more, I really like her. And I feel like Josh Henderson has really upped his game this year, this season. I feel like he's actually kind of stepping into those shoes, you know, that Larry Hagman, those big, big shoes that Larry Hagman has. And I feel like the storyline between Rebecca and John Ross is really starting to take off, or Pamela and John Ross. But I also, I'm going to call it right now, be very careful of Christopher, because I think Christopher is still very much in the picture as far as Pamela is concerned. The scene later in the courthouse where he touches the baby, the belly.
Because all of a sudden she's got a belly. It's 1 month later.
1 month later.
She's got a belly.
I know. I wanted to say something because I said last week that she might not be pregnant. Well, she's pregnant now.
Yeah, now she is.
That's what we kept saying too. We're like, how is she still wearing these pencil skirts and looking so phenomenal when she's supposed to be however many months pregnant?
With twins.
Oh. Well, I want to thank you so much for calling in, Courtney. Enjoy the rest of your night. Feel free to call in throughout the season. Also, get on iTunes and YouTube and leave us comments. We'll write back.
Thank you.
Okay.
Take care, doll.
Bye.
Bye. I love when like big fans of the show call in.
Yeah,
that's cool.
No, it's great, especially when they're really knowledgeable about what's going on.
It's so interesting, and that's what's so great about a good drama like this is that I never considered that perspective.
They're doing what Ann did.
Yeah. I never looked at it that way. And that's the cool thing about good writing is that everybody takes something different from the show. Like I said, I can relate to Emma's character because of that whole dynamic, whereas Courtney, who just called in, she understands the dynamic with John Ross and his father and with Pamela and her father and Ann. It's interesting.
And I kind of feel that their childhood's different. Maybe Pam and John Ross wouldn't be so conniving and the way that they were, and they could just be normal and not always out to get somebody, always having to do something underhanded. They can't just do anything right. It always has to be tricky.
Because Cliff Barnes didn't used to be like that. Cliff Barnes was not raised the same way that Pamela was raised at all. He was a good guy. In those early seasons of the original Dallas, he was a good person. He got screwed over by the Ewing family so often, particularly by Jock and then later by JR. Not so much Bobby, but out of necessity, he became this person that he is now. And it's interesting because for all I can see, Cliff Barnes is just pure evil now. He has moments where, out of respect, he reached out to JR in this episode, and then the way he talked to John Ross last week.
Do you think it was respect, or do you think it was taunting?
I don't know. I think JR took it as taunting, but I think that whether either of them would ever admit it, both of these men, I'm talking about their characters, about JR and Cliff Barnes, I think that there has to be a certain level of respect. Just like with anything. I think if you're two candidates running for the presidency and you're at each other's throats every single day, there's still an underlying mutual respect at the end of the day, because you know how hard it is to be at that level. When you're LeBron James and Kobe Bryant playing each other on the basketball court, you know how many times a season, there's a level of respect. Whether you guys really, really care about each other or not is a completely different story, but you respect each other. I feel like that's kind of what it is with JR and with Cliff Barnes. Well, they've been through everything together, and they are who they are because of each other. They would never be the people that they are. Cliff Barnes would never be this successful had it not been for JR.
Making him fight to get that.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
He wanted to be a man of the people. He was an attorney back in the day and fighting the good fight.
Yeah.
And there would be no such thing as Barnes International Global.
Global.
Without the Ewings.
Yeah.
Which is
and
a classic story.
It takes that. It takes somebody antagonizing you to really light that fire and get you to give you that drive that you need. Not that he needed to really go the same direction and be that evil, but still, it did force him to kind of get it together and strive that much harder.
I think it's a very common theme in life. I think that a way that most people could probably relate, just to put it into context that makes it a little more understandable for people. I know that for myself, my biggest successes have always come after my biggest disappointments. Oftentimes, it's a relationship that goes wrong. You know, maybe the relationship drove me in a certain direction, and at the time you think it's everything's bad and you're never gonna, get out of the situation. But on the other side of it, it's so much better than it ever was. I think that's the same thing for these guys because they're not in a traditional relationship, but Cliff Barnes and J.R. Ewing have very much been in a relationship since the late 70s.
Absolutely.
You know, whether they love it or hate it. There is not one without
the other.
Exactly. Yeah. And they know that. In a weird way, as much as JR hates the Barnes name, they're kind of like family.
Yeah, and this relationship between their two kids is like poetic justice. I mean, that's kind of what they get. Well, like it's always going to, I feel like it's always going to continue to be that struggle with them intertwined.
It is the classic Romeo and Juliet story. As much as you want to fight it, as much as they fought Pamela and Bobby together back in the day, now they're fighting Pamela with Christopher, then Pamela with John Ross. The more you fight it, the less it's going to do. Yeah. It's like that with anything. You raise your kids that you can't eat potato chips or whatever it is you try to keep from them. What are they going to do when they move out of the house? They're going to eat potato chips.
And the original Pamela, she didn't start off being evil. You know, it went that way. No. And it just kind of, JR and the Ewings have that way of just bringing out the worst in you.
They absolutely do.
They just really do.
Well, let's talk about this court case a little bit. Let's talk about Anne, okay? First of all, we're in the courthouse, and it starts off with Judith testifying. And she's just nuts. And she actually is warned by the judge she's going to be held in contempt of court, and the judge says, get her out of here and wipe everything. None of that's admissible because she's just crazy, which I liked.
I loved that. I was so happy that they did that.
I'm glad the jury got to see that because whether it's admissible or not, it's still there. Jury members are still human. You can tell them to forget it, but they're not really going to forget it.
No, and I hope that they saw it the same way we saw it, that she really is crazy. It wasn't looking out for her child. It was these crazy accusations.
Well, apparently not, because they end up finding...
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, she still shot him. So what are you going to do? Exactly. I mean, realistically, if you're on that jury and you're hearing both of this, and I think it was more the police testifying in the logistics and the ballistics of it, that it was a premeditated, she walked in, she did this, she left. She was there for 5 minutes. Yeah. She went, she had a job to do, she did it, and she left.
And like one of the officers, I think it was, when he testified, he said, in his opinion, it was an execution.
Right.
When you shoot somebody one time, you went there with a purpose. You didn't get freaked out. You weren't trying to defend yourself, because if somebody came after me and a gun went off, I'd probably shoot and shoot and shoot because I'd be terrified.
Well, and where the gunshot was, it was
1 centimeter, a little bit north,
1 centimeter away.
And he would have been dead.
So close.
Yeah. But is that a good thing or not? Do we wish he would have died?
No.
Wish she had any chance in court?
No.
I don't know how she has a chance to begin with, but that's the interesting thing about these types of shows. When just when you think there's no way on earth she can get out of this, you know she will.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I really wish her character would have gone into more detail about what he said to her to provoke her to shoot him. Those cruel, evil things that he was telling her, admitting everything that he did to her on purpose so that Emma could have heard that.
Well, how about Emma's reactions while she heard what she did hear?
Yeah.
Emma looked like she sat in that courtroom and she was sitting next to her dad, and Judith just, she looked uncomfortable.
And she was teary-eyed, and she was almost crying. And when the verdict was read, she ran out crying.
Well, and just to back up slightly, right before they went back into the courthouse, before the verdict was read, Christopher approached Emma outside in like a little seating area and just said, she's like, please don't sit down. You know, my dad and Judith are coming back. And he's like, I have to do this. This is my, you know, his stepmom, but his mom for all intents and purposes. And he sits down and he's like, you can't do this. She's had everything taken from her already. These people, they brainwashed you essentially, and she's a good woman. She's a good woman. And we see during the trial that Pamela actually testifies on Anne's behalf,
right?
Which I thought went a long way in helping her to get back to some sort of decent standing with the Ewing family. And then Sue Ellen's testimony. And again, we talk about this every week. I love the relationship between Anne and Sue Ellen.
Well, and I like how she talks about how they met and what they were doing. And she threw in there that it was for a battered women's charity, that's how they came together. And I just wish that Anne would have gone into a little bit more detail about what was actually done to her. So, I mean, her story, although it was heartbreaking, it was still not enough, I felt, to give a jury the right to get, you know.
Well, why do you think she didn't? Do you think that
I think it was to spare Emma.
Exactly. And that's what I was going to say. I think that it's oh gosh, what is the story? Not to get biblical, but the story with the mother and the child. The two women are fighting over the child. And the one, the true mother says, they say, okay, I'm going to cut the baby in half and you each take half. The real mother says, take the baby.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of what I went to Catholic school. I'm really good with my Bible references tonight. But I think that's very much what happened in this scenario. I think Anne was trying to spare Emma. And
I think she said just enough, but not too much, because she was thinking of her feelings.
And also, as far as she knows right now, Emma still wants nothing to do with her.
Right.
And she doesn't want to push it too far too quickly. It's a very, very fine line, a very delicate balance, I think, with this scenario with her daughter, who she doesn't even know. And it's, I use this word a lot, it's just inappropriate to do it in a courtroom. And it shows you how much she does love her daughter, that she's willing to sacrifice herself.
Which I hope that Emma sees, and I hope that when she stops and thinks about this, that she will realize that it could have gotten a lot uglier the way Judith was getting ugly on her, but Anne didn't do that back.
And I think, and here's where it's going to get interesting, I think Emma does see it. Whether she has the courage to do something about it,
that's the real question.
Is going to be a different. Do I sound funny to you right now? I have a weird.
Oh, you have a weird
vibration in my mic. What is that?
It's a weird static.
My
it
mic
might
is
be
vibrating.
The cord and stuff. Just wiggle the cord a bit.
I'm just gonna
wiggle that thing and see what happens.
Just a little
you have some
bit.
Static.
Okay, it's cool. You know what?
Static.
I just want to make sure there's not some earthquake or something going on out here in California. I get a little scared.
Don't even. I can't deal with that.
Is that better? No, not at all. Cool. Well, fantastic. Moving forward, I could switch mics. No. So, eventually, the jury comes back, and as they're waiting for the jury verdict, their attorney, what's his name again? Terrible. I can't think of his name.
Oh my gosh, it just totally left my mind. Anyway.
Their attorney says the longer they're out, the better. And almost instantly gets a phone call.
Yeah.
They're back. Not good for Anne, right?
No. Which you kind of know going into this, there's no way she could have gotten acquitted that fast. It's not enough drama. You know, she's going to have to go through something. It would have been too easy, and I think it would have really disappointed the audience had she gotten off that quickly.
Well, my fear was that knowing that Larry Hagman is leaving the series in another episode or two, that they were going to try to rush it. I was afraid that was going to happen. And so when she was found guilty, I was like, okay, they're going to draw this out, maybe put it on the back burner for an episode or two, or this is leading up to everything that's about to go down with the death of JR on the show.
I mean, it could be the perfect tie-in, and in a way that they didn't have to rush it. And I think that's what's so great about the writers and the way they do take care of this show and really think about their audience, because you have to really do this with kid gloves. This is a big deal. It's a big show. it's really close to some people's, it's a part of people's lives. They really get into it.
The show was on the air before I was born.
I know.
And my mom was watching it.
Yeah, it's and they're handling it with such care, which is what I really appreciate. And I'm glad that they're not rushing and they're not taking that for granted and they're taking their time.
My mom just tells me the Bible stories about King Solomon.
Oh, there you go.
Thanks, Mom. Really? The last person on earth I ever expected to help me with a Bible reference. I love you, Mom. That's too funny.
I need to brush up on my Catholic school
I know,
stuff.
right? It's been a while. No, but I'm really curious to see how this all plays out.
Yeah.
And what I love is that the show is so layered that they're so lucky. Well, they're not lucky. They should be very happy that they're so good at what they do because they had to know that Larry Hagman's time was coming. And he didn't have a lot of time left on the show. So they wrote all these storylines in a way that now, leading up to his death, there are so many different directions they could take it.
Right.
And I think they probably planned for that. I'm sure they shot all kinds of scenes in preparation for this. And I'm sure he, everything I know about him from seeing interviews and reading about him, I'm sure he wanted everything, all the bases covered.
Oh, absolutely.
Because this is his heart and soul. This show has been, and like his son said in an interview recently, that this show, coming back to the show, kept him alive the last couple of years.
Yeah. And
gave him something to live for. And you talk about handling this situation with kid gloves, and it's so true. There aren't many characters in the history of television, and that's a pretty big statement, but in the history of television that have been as iconic as Larry Hagman.
Oh, no.
I mean, he's played two huge characters, Bewitched. And no, not Bewitched. I Dream of Jeannie.
I Dream of Jeannie,
Same show, right? I Dream of Jeannie, and then Dallas. And JR is the villain of all villains.
Oh, absolutely.
So I get emotional, but I'm excited to see the next couple of episodes.
I am too. They're going to be very bittersweet for sure. And
well, I want to ask our iTunes fans what their favorite memories of JR are. I think we asked you that last week, but I also want to know what are you guys going to miss most about JR? I know we always talk about his one-liners on this show and his snarky his eyebrows, his snarky comebacks. But what are you guys going to miss about Larry Hagman on the show as we head into what we think is his final episode? So please get on iTunes, leave us comments. We will comment back. I love to get the conversation, keep the conversation going on iTunes after the show. Also, please give us 5 stars, you guys. If you like what we're doing, let us know it by giving us 5 stars and by telling your friends about us. That's the only way we continue to grow. We're up to almost how many million podcast downloads per week? 25 million a week in nearly 80 countries, you guys, around the world.
Fantastic.
So AfterBuzz is growing by leaps and bounds. We're so excited to be a part of it, but we couldn't do any of this, guys, without you. So please, please, please get on iTunes. Also, if you guys have an iPhone, there's an app for your iPhone called Podcast with an S, where you can have all of your favorite AfterBuzz shows automatically downloaded to your phone each and every day, so you can listen to us
at your leisure.
At your leisure, exactly. Thanks for the save, Kelly. Also, you guys, if you guys get on YouTube and watch us on YouTube, leave us comments there as well, and we will comment back. So
absolutely.
Thank you. And if you don't want to give us 5 stars, don't give us any. I'm just playing. You can. You know what? If you want to give me 1 star, that means I deserve it. Be honest. I deserve it. But don't think I won't start a conversation with you afterwards to find out how I can improve just for you. So, moving on. Who do we want to talk about next? Let's touch on Drew just briefly.
Okay.
His character and his storyline, because it's not super relevant yet. I feel like they're trying to make Elena's character more relevant down the road and keep her kind of tied into all of this, because now that she's back in the Ewing household and she actually was living there last season, but now that she's back as part of the family and she's with Christopher again, her character's a little boring right now to me. And I think that bringing Drew into the picture, this brother that we never heard mentioned, I don't believe, in season 1, now he's in the picture.
I don't think
and
so. Yeah.
He has a sordid past, and he's trying to make amends with his sister and with his mother. He's back at South Fork, and he's now working for her on this, trying to drill on the Henderson Ranch, which didn't really go through. So he's doing some side work, and John Ross and JR are having him followed now. Correct.
John Ross is.
John Ross.
JR does. I don't think JR is in on that.
Well, he probably is. Just to be fair.
Well, because when they talk about it, like, he knows about the clause, like he knows why John Ross would do that, but I don't think he knew that John Ross was doing it.
He knows everything.
But I mean, he knew.
We don't
why,
know that yet, though.
But but he knew why, and I mean, and that brings up like a fun point between that conversation that we can get to, because there's a great quote there that I love.
Which
so much.
I'm sure you wrote down or have in your head somewhere.
Yes.
Perfect. So Drew, though, he's transporting goods, right? And this private detective is following him, and as he says that he keeps. I love private detectives on these sorts of shows, but apparently he makes a stop at the same station every time he makes this.
And he
trip.
switches trucks.
And he switches trucks. So he follows him, and while Drew gets out to use the restroom, he bashes out one of his taillights with like a golf club or something.
I think it was what do you call it? It doesn't matter.
It was a 9-iron, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes,
I don't know what it was. I'm making stuff up. So he bashes out his taillight, which is the relevant part of the story, Kelly. So he bashes out a taillight knowing that he's going to get pulled over, right?
Well,
and
hoping,
tips off the police, I'm sure. I'm sure something went down, the highway patrol or something.
The funniest part about that whole thing is I did not expect them to pull out what they were pulling out.
So they pull him over and they ask for the keys to the back of the semi so they can see they're like, first of all, they're like, where are your papers? He's like, I don't have any. They didn't tell me I needed any. Like, well, you've never done this before.
Down.
Yeah. And they get into the cargo, and it looks like he's transporting like appliances, like kitchen appliances or something, I think it was.
Yeah, it's like, it was auto supplies, I think.
Auto supplies, that's what it was, exactly. And they open up the first box, and the first box what was the first box?
It was purses.
Purses, yeah. And the second box was high heels. I'm like, really?
Everything they could have pulled out of there, I was not expecting purses and high heels.
I was expecting like cocaine or something. Not high heels and purses.
Well, I thought it was going to be something. Well, I mean, that definitely threw me, but I thought it was going to be something ridiculous like fruit or food or, you know, something like that.
Stuffed puppies or something.
You know,
I don't know.
with something like stuffed inside. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was not expecting high fashion.
Diamonds like stuffed inside like little teddy bears or something. Like on the Chipmunks film that came out in the early 90s.
Well, see, he was a little bit hesitant before he gave the cop the keys.
Yeah.
So he had to know what. I mean, I don't believe that he didn't know what was in there.
I think that they played out that scene very well, because I think you can look at it two ways. You could, if it were me, I'd be hesitant as well, even if I didn't think I was doing anything wrong. Whenever there's a cop near you, you know that feeling when you're driving, you see a cop behind you, all of a sudden you get scared, and you're like butt cheeks like tense up, and you're nervous, and you're like, what?
It doesn't matter what you're
not doing anything wrong at all.
Like they're gonna find for murder or something.
Yes, it's like being in junior high and like walking in front of a girl or a guy that you have a crush on. All of a sudden you can't walk straight anymore. It's like awkward. It's one of those things where it's like you can't do anything about it. Your body just takes over and you get nervous. And so I could think, well, maybe he's just nervous because the cops are pulling him over, and he does have a past, and he's trying to change it, and this is not what he needs right now. Or like you said, he knows what he's doing.
I don't know. I would think because of that, I would be so willing to here. I don't know anything, just to look as innocent as possible.
Nope, not me. I have a guilty conscience always about everything, and I have no idea why. Because I'm so nervous about breaking rules or laws or anything. I got pulled over the summer for a texting while driving ticket. I was looking at my GPS and got pulled over for it. I was terrified. I've been pulled over once in my life. I was terrified. I don't like to break rules. Like, I won't even cross the street in like a residential neighborhood if there's like a crosswalk there and it's like a red light and there's no car within miles. I won't cross the street. I get scared. I'm weird like that. So I would have been nervous. You're a little more badass apparently. It wouldn't have faced you.
I guess I would have just been like, here, do what you got to do. Okay. I don't know. I just think it's better when you act more casual. Like there's not anything wrong, cool. So you don't look guilty, even if you, I don't know, even if you are.
You look pretty guilty though. Like I would assume that 9 times out of 10, whatever the scenario it is, you don't even have to tell me what the scenario is. I would just assume you're probably guilty.
I probably am.
You probably are. Not me. Not me. I'm an angel who doesn't know my Bible stories.
So he gets thrown in jail, calls Elena, and she obviously runs out to go get him. And he's in there swearing up and down that he didn't know and this and that, that he's trying to make things right, which I think he is trying to make some quick money, and he's just making stupid decisions. Yeah. I don't think he's learned his lesson in that regard yet.
His character is so funny to me because it frustrates me, and I think we all know people like him, that they always have an excuse.
Oh, absolutely. Nothing's ever their fault.
Ever their fault. And that's frustrating. And for somebody like Elena, we also know people who like her. She's successful, and you don't need excuses when you do things the right way the first time.
Right.
If you live your life by that rule, just do it right. And you don't have to worry about that other stuff. Not him. He's constantly, and that kind of explains why he's always been
in trouble and kind of the outcast of everything.
Yeah.
I think he tries too hard and he stumbles so much that he gets himself in trouble.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how to just relax and just let it be. No patience, I think, is the big thing. I think he and John Ross have that in common.
Yeah. So, Drew.
I mean, we'll see what happens with him, and if that really is going to cause friction with Elena's deal with Sue Ellen. Because, I mean, that's the goal here for John Ross, is to get that deal and to make Sue Ellen call in that loan.
Which is funny because Sue Ellen, the last couple of episodes, has been a little bit more of a shark ever since John Ross went to her. And
well, at the courthouse, do you remember when when she witnessed Christopher and Elena's behavior, where Elena practically bumps into John Ross, and Sue Ellen was like, "Oh, you know,
they're getting a little bit bold or brazen now."
Yeah.
With their, and he said, "You should see him at the office."
And she says, you know, I've got your back. I fully support you on this. So she's out for blood for this, you know, for her kid.
She's definitely playing mama bear the last couple of episodes.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't make me really like Christopher or Elena all that much.
I absolutely am not happy with their behavior at all. And Christopher's character is very annoying right now.
It's funny. And this is where I see growth in Josh Henderson as an actor and the character of John Ross. Whereas last season, he was very, very much in the shadow of JR. And the way they're writing him this season and the way he's really stepped up to the plate is really impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
JR, he's an icon. We've already established that. But he's playing that part really well right now because he's going to have to step into that part very soon.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe the way the show's written, they're kind of making Christopher and Elena the secondary characters right now for the time being out of necessity. They have to give John Ross the opportunity to grow into this character. Because this first part of the season, the first 5 episodes, it's been John Ross all day long. Yeah. Which I like. It's funny, though, because he's doing what JR was able to do, what Larry Hagman was able to do. He makes you like him while you hate him. Exactly. That's cool.
Everything that you do is so frustrating because he doesn't really have to be like that, but he does because that's who he is. So you absolutely love him and hate him at the same time.
And there's a reason he does those things. Yeah. It's all out of this necessity to make his father proud, and out of so many mixed emotions he has when it comes to his mother, Sue Ellen, whereas Christopher is just the spoiled little brat who went away to private school, came back, and now he found methane.
Yeah, exactly. And I think another thing with John Ross's character, too, is I think, yes, on one sense, he wants to impress his father, but then at the same time, he wants to be able to sustain himself without him. Right. He wants to know that he doesn't need him. And I think that's a constant battle for him. And that's why he went behind his back to go talk to Cliff and his whole situation with Pam and doing that on his own.
And Sue Ellen's very, very much aware of this all. Because she actually goes to JR and says, forgive your son. Yeah. Just forgive him.
Take the high road.
Exactly. Which, if I could give anybody one bit of advice in life to always live by, it's take the high road.
As hard as it is to get on that ramp.
It is so hard sometimes. Your transmission go out, you get a flat tire, you run out of gas. Get on that ramp.
Get on the high road, yeah.
Because it really is just a rule to live by in life, I think. And Sue Ellen knows that, and she learned it the hard way.
Absolutely.
You know, and she's telling him, she's like, make amends. Because I think that they're not really talking about it this season, but JR's health wasn't good at the beginning of last season. He was, you know, put away in a hospital. And I think she knows, she has that instinct. She knows, her character knows that his time here is limited. Go forgive your son. Don't die with John Ross living with this feeling inside of him for the rest of eternity that he can never be enough for his father. Right. That's a tough burden to bear.
And when JR finally does go and talk to him, the first thing he says is, I don't need your forgiveness. You know, because he has to be, you know, that little bratty kid that, you know, I don't need you. I can do this on my own. When you know deep down he does. He just doesn't know how to show his, and rightfully so, the way he grew up. I mean, you feel for him and you understand where he's coming from. And, you know, JR still goes and he's like, you know, well, I'm going to do it anyway, basically. And he tells him, you know, well, what's going on? Is there anything I need to know when he gets a phone call? You know, is there anything I need to know about this? And John Ross tells him, well, we found out, you know, Drew's in jail. He got picked up for, you know, smuggling stuff or whatever.
And JR's like, well, there's the chance. There's a chance.
And then, you know, John Ross says, oh, you knew about that? And my favorite part is he was like, son, you still don't know who you're dealing with, but I can't blame you for that. But you know, I can't, you know, you can't help that, but I'm going to forgive, you know.
It's kind of like, he's like, it's very condescending. He's like, oh, that's cute. Nice try.
Yeah, because he says, I can't blame you for that, but I'll forgive you. Yeah. Love it.
The eternal wisdom of J.R. Ewing.
And it kind of like stops you. I mean, what is he going to say to that? Because it's true. He doesn't know who he's dealing with. He doesn't understand to the levels of how smart his dad really is. Like, he might be old, but he's not stupid.
And he's not
to treat him as such is just a big mistake on John Ross's part.
And well, I think it speaks to a general theme in society where people of our generation don't really have the respect for elders that maybe there used to be.
Right.
And I think that oftentimes you just assume somebody's 70, 80, 90 years old, what do they know?
Yeah.
That's where the knowledge lies.
They know a lot.
That's where the knowledge lies. And I think that John Ross isn't really going to understand that fully for years after JR is gone.
Yeah.
And he said, what does he say when he's talking to John Ross? I love this quote I wrote down. He said, we dinosaurs are known to bite.
Yes.
What a snarky comment, but again, a perfect one-liner from JR.
Oh, yeah.
Dinosaurs bite.
That's what he still thinks, he doesn't need it.
Yeah. Interesting.
What about the Venezuelans coming back?
Yes, let's talk about that briefly because it's so interesting. As Anne is on trial to go away, the Venezuelan has an extradition hearing.
He's getting freed.
Yes.
Extradited.
To go back to Venezuela and serve in there. Please.
Like he's really going to serve any time in that.
He's got more power in Venezuela
yes.
than the president or the prime minister.
And it's a favor to the Venezuelan consulate. Like, that's the stupidest thing ever.
What do we owe them favors for?
I know.
They already win Miss Universe every 3 years. It's Venezuela. That's enough, Venezuela. That's enough. Drug traffickers, the Venezuelans.
I love the scene though when Anne is going away and he's coming out.
How ironic is that, and how heartbreaking that in the moment, in the exact moment, and this is what Dallas is really great at, and they've done this really well this season in particular. That same moment as she's going into prison, he's coming out, and how awful that will be for the Ewing family.
Oh, absolutely.
Just like last week when Judith said how horrible it must be for you to know that your husband is going to rot in prison while Ryland is free.
Yeah.
Same thing. And they're really trying to get you to pull for the Ewing family now. I think, as opposed to back in the day, the Ewings tended to seem like the bad guys a lot. They don't really right now. I'm really pulling for all of them, even John Ross
with the internal struggles.
Yes. Yes. And I love that so much about this show. So we're gonna have to wait till next week to see.
I know, we saw some crazy previews about what the Venezuelans are not gone. So they're gonna try to take over South Fork. So I'm really excited to see kind of how it's scary. I want to see what happens.
And he said when he looked at, was it Bobby?
Bobby.
He's like, this isn't over.
No, we still have unfinished business.
Unfinished business. That's
scary stuff.
That's a lot to handle, and it's funny that he's coming back in right now as who knows if he'll actually end up in Venezuela. Or if he'll escape, or what could happen.
Right.
Because somebody's going to shoot JR in the next week or so. Somebody's going to. That storyline is going to come full circle from the 1980s, and that's going to be the way that Larry Hagman's character goes out, and anybody could be to blame.
Absolutely.
So it's really exciting to see how they're going to play that. What do you think? Let's just call this our prediction section.
Okay.
What do you predict is going to happen?
Now.
Let's say in the next couple of weeks, because we know in the next 2 weeks.
We have the funeral.
Yes.
Okay.
What do you think is coming up?
Like after that?
No, in the next couple of weeks. How do you think it's going to play out?
Well, I heard a rumor, so it's hard for me to have an unbiased, but I heard a rumor that how it's going to play out is that it's going to look like, anyway, a random mugging. And that's how JR goes out. But it's going to turn into a homicide investigation. And it's going to pinpoint these different people. And I think it's very much going to be like the Who Shot JR. Like it could be the Venezuelans. It could be Cliff. It could be Pamela. It could be John Ross. We don't know. I mean, how far is John Ross willing to go to protect Pamela? Because there's obviously some kind of love there. As the camera goes and he's trying to grab her hand and it shows her belly and all of that. I mean, are they going to come together and be a little family? What's the deal there? And although JR doesn't like it, is that going to cause friction? So many different ways that it could go. Is it going to be an accident that somebody covers up to make it look, or is it Ryland?
Well, that's really interesting because I think that it won't be a mugging. That's how it's going to look, but there's no way on earth that Larry Hagman would ever even allow them to take him out like that. So it's an interesting take on it, though. It's an interesting angle to do another Who Shot JR or Who Killed JR. Maybe that'll be their tagline, unfortunately. But it's really interesting. I'm gonna make some predictions in a different way. I'm going to talk about real briefly. I'm going to talk about Pamela and Christopher. They're not done.
No.
They're not done. And it's so weird to see the way that John Ross is falling for Pamela right now, knowing that she's carrying his nemesis, basically his arch rival's children. It's just a strange thing to think about.
Well, and
having sex with her while she's got your arch rival's babies inside. This is weird. It's just weird. Who she's kind of related to anyways, because she and Christopher were kind of related, but not really. In a strange, that whole connection last year.
It's all very incestuous.
But I think that Christopher and Elena are very far from over, because we've all seen it time and time again. What happens when a baby comes into the picture? You know, your first child, you saw how Christopher teared up.
Yeah.
Just from touching her belly.
Well, and the fact that he's decided to go into arbitration and all of that. So it's really going to test his relationship with Elena.
And she's now come out in support. She testified in support of Anne, his mother, for all intents and purposes. And also, she's really started to soften up a little bit. She hasn't been so harsh in her attacks lately.
And we'll have to see, is that a tactic? Or is it really her true feelings? Which is going to, you know, that's going to be a good thing to see, because she is very much, you know, just like our caller said, she's very much like at the beck and call of her dad. Yeah. And which he calls her after that, after the arbitration is set, and applauds her for it, and is proud of her for that. Yeah. And makes the comment, no emotion in that, good job. Yeah. Which I think it was all emotion.
I think her character's really interesting. I love watching.
It's very multifaceted. I really like it. So much more than Elena, and I think they're trying to with Elena, but I think it's kind of a one at a time thing, so we'll see.
Jordana Brewster really peaked on, what was the movie? The Faculty? Was that years ago? Or Fast and Furious? That also, she was on there. She's better than a few of them. No, but I like all these characters, and it kind of ebbs and flows, and that's how a show like this has to work. Yeah. Do we have any news and gossip? How were the ratings this week? Did they go up again?
They actually, I think they went up just a little. A
little bit?
But it's not like a huge flux.
Better to go up than to go the other way.
Very true.
So cool, so cool. So, you guys, thank you so much for stopping by tonight, for watching us, for listening to us. We look forward to interacting with you guys again next week. Make sure you get on iTunes and YouTube and leave us comments. We'll get back to you. Kelly, where can our fans and our listeners follow you on Twitter?
You can find me at Kelly with an IE 079.
You guys can also find me on Twitter and Instagram at _AJ Gibson. Check out my website, ajgibson.tv. You can get connected to me that way as well. We thank you guys so much for stopping by. We look forward to doing this again next week. Take care.
See you later.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz y'all later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.